Hey everybody, we're live with MTG Nexus with playing some Burn on Sundays, as we've been doing for quite some time. As a friendly reminder, if you're seeing this on YouTube later, please consider giving us a subscribe, and if you're catching this on Twitch, please consider giving us a follow. So, that said, what is going on with this list? It's the same one we're kind of running back from last week. I didn't finish the league yet, so we have at least 2 matches to finish there before we decide any changes need to be made to the deck. The theory behind this deck was I wanted Exquisite Firecraft in the format because of the presence of the various blue decks in the format, whether it's blue-white that was splashing Leyline and Binding, whether it was the Rhinos decks needing to be able to finish them off, whether it was 4-color Omnath piles before Yorion getting banned, being able to finish off through them through a counterspell, etc. So I've been kind of testing Firecraft and constantly not running into the matchups we kind of want with it. As far as that goes, I think this card is fine. Whether it's worth giving up 2 additional slots in our sideboard kind of remains to be seen. Kind of hard to take too much from just league play that has either been very hot or very cold for us of late. As far as the rest of the list, some people have commented about 19 lands. I'm generally not a huge fan of 19 lands, but it does open up a slot in the main deck. And I really don't know that there's a huge difference between 19 or 20 lands in the deck overall. I do like the consistency of 20 lands, making sure you have... Because ideally your best burn hands obviously have about 2 lands in your opening hand, at least 1 drop creature, and then some amount of spells to finish off the game. So ideally, you kind of increase the chances of a 2-land hand with 20, but... by how much, I really don't know. I haven't run the factorials of a Frank Carson article or something along those lines. But, the rest of the deck, Burn has a fairly widespread curve. You have your 16 1-drops, you have the 8 pseudo 1-drops that are 3-drops sometimes, and then you have your glut of 16 or 17 2-mana spells. It's a very deck that is very curve dependent. If you get too many 2-drop spells, you kind of, the games don't generally end too well because you're trying to curve out and win the game as quickly as possible. Obviously, the 3-drop spells are fine. Sometimes Riftbolt's a little bit awkward with the Teferi in the format. Skewer the Critics can be a little bit hard to turn on sometimes. But, a lot of the argument is around the presence of Lightning Helix versus Skullcrack is in the list. Lightning Helix, a lot of people didn't like against Ragavan, but when a deck is dealing itself quite a bit of damage with Canopy lands and Eidolon the Great Rebel, having some method of regaining some life can be relevant, especially as there's a little bit more decks about chipping away as opposed to previous situations, but still not a huge amount of creature decks in the format, but we have run into some like Azorius humans and some other stuff in some streams of late, and that little bit extra, just a little bit of life gain. And then, we were also testing 3 Eidolons in this particular build. Once again, the theory was you really only ever want to see 1 Eidolon in games, and there are a ton. Eidolon can often be the most awkward of all your creatures, because even in situations where like Swift Spear and Goblin Guide aren't good, they can either eat a removal spell or, potentially chump block for a turn, buying you an extra draw step. Whereas Eidolon makes it awkward because when you're in those situations where you're trying to top deck, say you're at like 5-6 life and you're trying to jump block with an Eidolon, you can't really cast spells, while the Eidolon's still in play, it can get really awkward. So that's why we're testing 3 Eidolons in this version. Sanctifier, obviously a card, some people prefer Core Firewalker, but Firewalker is literally only good in the mirror match. It has some okay spots against like Murktide and stuff, but Sanctifier is just simply better in that matchup. It's decent against Dredge, decent against Reanimator, although Reanimator isn't really much of a thing right now. Not good against Living End, which is the other graveyard deck in the format, simply because most of the creatures are blue. It's decent against Scam, although Scam's good draws are still going to get us anyway. And then, the rest of the deck, pretty self-explanatory. Rolling Vortex against any of the Cascade nonsense or Elemental nonsense, or anything that's gaining a bunch of life. Smash Smithereens for Hammer Time, Tron, any of that stuff. Can be okay against Amulet. Deflecting Palm and Path are pretty much our anti-creature package anymore. And then Firecraft we've already kind of covered. So that said, let's get into our remaining 2 matches and then kind of see where we go from there. Really haven't figured what I'm going to do beyond that tonight for the stream. So let's get into the matches. Right, we are back for our first match this week. Definitely gonna be on the play. Hand's a little bit awkward with a 1-lander, but I think it has enough 1-mana spells to justify keeping. So we're gonna try it, although once again, you know, it could be running, arguing about the 20th land, but it wouldn't be any of these cards anyway, so. Go, little goblin god, go. Revealing Lonely Sandbar. I have no idea what that means. Some type of run and 6 pile, maybe? Okay. I was going to say, if I were an opponent, I would fetch first. Alright, so it looks like we're just up against like blue-white control. Or some variant of it. Maybe the 4-color Niv version, or the 4-color Renin 6 Leyline of Bonding version. Feels like this is going to get fired, or like... Yep. Suspending this is obviously risky if they have Ren, or not Ren, Teferi, but I still think it's the most mana efficient play this turn. Obviously you could play any of these spells as well, and we kind of get got if they have Teferi just from a mana standpoint. But I think this taxes our opponent's mana the most, so it's something I'm interested in doing. I'm still not entirely sure what our opponent is on. They could be, I guess this could be some style of wilderness reclamation, perhaps? I was gonna say, they're gonna counter this. Maybe we'll be able to draw a land and punish them here with Eidolon. Okay, so they are a wilderness reclamation deck. And that said, our opponent has to react to us. They don't have things like... that's actually kind of annoying. This way, if they have a force of negation, they take damage to... Now I'll keep them from casting a spell. Obviously, Otawaro bounces the thing, and then they could play something afterwards. Which is annoying. Sure. Let's start with this. We're forced to answer this either with like an Archmage's Charm or something. Which they're probably going to steal. So we'll force them to have counterspell, which they quite likely have. Alright, now they just get the... They block, but they don't really gain any traction off of it. If I were them, I would scry during their upkeep. Nope. Apparently they have enough to do with their mana. Or an Entix to Artawaro. Right, we knew about the memory deluge. So put it with an Artawaro, one unknown. Are they gonna... Okay, Ice Fang Codal, sure. Let's let this block happen. Okay. Put it with a Lowly Sandbar and Artawaro in play. With all the Codals. What's up, Aquarius? How you doing? Put it with yet another memory deluge. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Play our worst burn spell, but still lethal, so we'll force them to counter it. And hopefully we'll draw a land and be able to double spell next turn. That doesn't work how you want it to, friend. How do you draw that many cards and not see a counterspell? The world may never know. Bring in these, bring in the Roiling Vortexes. Serum Blaze has some targets, but it's not really good in the matchup. Maybe I'll leave like one in. Down a couple of Skewer the Critics. Sorcery Speed can be a little bit awkward. Nice, how's it going for you? Hopefully better than it's been going for us on stream the last couple of weeks. Last couple of weeks have not been kind. This is the reason why I liked Firecraft. This hand's fine overall. So we will get in at least one damage with our Swizzle Spear. Guess we'll lead on this. Siege Rhino? Are you playing Pioneer or are you playing Modern? So that really doesn't seem a modern playable card anymore. Unless somebody really loves their Abzan decks. Okay, yeah, you get a chump blocker, which is fine. Oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. No, we missed out on some damage, but they just would have blocked if we would have, or counterspelled something. Yeah, Bolt's fine. Well, also to be fair, there are some, there's like a 5-color Enigmatic Fires deck that likes to play like a 1-of Siege Rhino, so it's not as crazy to play as some people would think. Let's play this. Does our opponent not have a counter spell here? I think I'm just supposed to Boros Charm. If they have a Spell Pierce or something, good game for them, I guess. They don't. Okay, let's double it with Lily Sandbar. Alright, opponent's gonna learn this rack, which is annoying, but also kind of whatever here. You really should be attacking with our Codal. Alright, just pass. Friday Night Siege Rhino. Okay. Sure. Should possibly be holding on to lands just because Searing Blaze, we still have like a 1-of in our deck, so, you know. Opponent's going to get some serious mana advantage. Still think you should be attacking with your Codal here. Okay. Sure. Alright, let's see what they got. Okay, you have a second counterspell. Alright, get on them. Yeah, so they should be upkeep scrying here. Running text, only Sandbar. So we know our opponent's last card in hand is not a counterspell currently. Not that it matters, we can top deck it another. Didn't like burn too much. Burn's not the best position deck in Pioneer. There's 2 cards on the bottom. Okay, what was I going to do with this scry? Defeats. 2 cards on the top. That's terrifying. You know what I wanted to draw? I wanted to draw another land. That's what I wanted to draw. Like, we literally have a 2-0 that just like ends the game on the spot, but sure. It's got their card engine online. But still not attacking with their Codal. So if they're Abzan players, what is their removal mostly? We still have 1 turn, so we'll pass. No reason to play anything currently. The other fetch land literally has no fetchable targets, but we'll play it out, see what happens. Because we're dead in 2 turns with this. Sure. Finally deciding attacking is the way. I was just thinking, because the old, like, when I played Standard many moons ago during Cons and something Standard, kind of the hard counter to Siege Rhino and Abzan was the Stormbreath Dragon, because a lot of the removal was like Abzan Charm and stuff, and just couldn't touch Stormbreath Dragon, but Glorybringer is probably better in the context of Pioneer. Okay, floating mana really doesn't matter. Alright, well, try. But it probably has a bunch of counter spells. Well, that's certainly a magic card. Yeah, bolts. Literally irrelevant here. Do you have another counterspell? Somehow you don't have another counterspell there. Okay. That works. Alright, back for match number 2. We're on the play. This hand's kind of middling. We have no 1-drop spell or 1-drop creature spell, but we have 12 points of burn, 3 lands, so it's on the lower end of keepable. And our opponent is mulliganing. They are a weekend warrior. So leading on Riftbolt to enable Skewer the Critics on turn 2. Bolt and Helix are a little less time dependent than these two, obviously. So you generally want to lead on the more dependent spells when you're sequencing. Okay, so possibly Murktide. Alright, that kind of changes the trajectory of this hand. I was going to say, a lot of people have commented previously that I spend too much time burning creatures against decks like Murktide, so I was going to try just going for the burnout plan here. Our opponent kept a really questionable hand. I think we just pass here. Like, Murktide's obviously a very annoying, or whatchamacallit's a very annoying creature. Sure. I'll pop off some spells in response, that way I don't get hit by a Spell Pierce. Question is, am I supposed to kill Monkey? But I don't think so, simply because we're so low on resources. And if our opponent, like, ever taps low, they're just dead. So... yeah, Thermal Alchemist is a interesting card if it lives. And there's a lot less 3 damage burn spells in the... Oh. Okay. We're not up against Murktide. We're up against... Is this seriously the same gentleman or lady that we played against that has like the Tolarian something or other in their deck? Alright, go. Hopefully they don't hit one of our last copy of Lightning Helix. All the rest of the spells are kind of irrelevant here. Okay, they have Swift Spear, which is like kind of annoying, but also fine. Sure. Okay, so they're Shadow. That's actually a terrifying draw. Alright, so I'm just supposed to take the opportunity to try to... Alright, I guess we didn't try, we just succeeded. That Shadow is, like, very terrifying. Okay, so they're not drawing a Shadow, which is interesting. It's going to be up to some monkey business. Do you hit with monkey? Yeah, I don't think they're going to cast that Eidolon. Just a thought. Alright, suspend with Bolt Pass. In my case, Rhino business. Yeah. Siege Rhino is a, yeah. Rhino business. Siege Rhino, ironically, Siege Rhino is the reason that, or was the final draw that Birthing Pod was banned in Modern, which I still find absolutely hilarious right now when you consider all the cards that have been banned since then. You know, the Uros of the world, the Okos of the world, you know. So. Opponent is actually tapping low here. Yeah, they've tried replacing it with like Vanifair and stuff, but it's not the same. I don't want to crack this yet because they could still have like Inquisition or something. So I was supposed to crack that land on end step though. Or maybe not. Actually, us cracking land might have saved us here. Never mind. JK. I'm going to say, you can't spell pierce that, so. Was some incentive to do that. So we're up against Shadow. We want the Sanctifiers. We want this. We want the Deflecting Palms-ish. These Skullcracks, not the best in this matchup. Eidolon, a little bit awkward on the draw, especially. Searing Blaze is good, but also bad. Because Searing Blaze doesn't actually deal with Shadow itself. Because the way it's templated, even if Shadow's like a 2-2 or a 3-3. So I think we do this and see what happens. Oh yeah, I mean, it was never Pioneer legal, so. Sand's okay. It's not super exciting. We have a 1-drop, couple awkward skewers, and a Boros charm, so we'll keep it, but Sand's like weak to an early monkey or DRC or any of that nonsense, so. Alright, well. Early monkey problem solved-ish. Opponent goes DRC. It's not a terrible magic card. What's up, War Dog? How you doing? Does our opponent have a... It's like a Fatal Push or something? Or are they burning a Stubborn Denial? Wait, why would you Stubborn Denial that here? I mean, I guess it keeps us from... double spelling this turn, but good, good. Hope you're both doing well, man. How's your shredder? I think we take the opportunity to Boros charm. I actually screwed up there. See if our opponent blocks, then we can still kill the Ledger Shredder. Okay, cool. And even if they, even with their Surveil here, they still get to still lose their creature. I should have thought about just. I got too far ahead of myself, and I'm so used to double spelling that I should have just skewered, got in for the damage, and passed. So DRC somehow still is not okay. I'm gonna say somehow it's still not a 3/3, but now it is. That's what, 2. They have Murktide in their deck too? Oh, they have everything. Let's play this and pass. Yes?
They have everything, huh? Your reaction's priceless.
I'm sure it is. Dominator United. It's a shorthand some of the YouTubers were using, so maybe I'm getting ahead of myself there. But just gonna take this hit and hold in case they have Death Shadow. What with all the stuff? Ragavan. Okay, so I'm going to want to fetch Basic Mountain here. Actually, Sacred Foundry. Kind of awkward because we're going to be cracking away our second, whatchamacallit, source here. So let's play this. Hope to get a little lucky. Really want them to attack with their shadow, but that doesn't seem likely with the Goblin Guide out there. So they're definitely swinging with DRC. You don't have a choice. You have to swing with that. I'm going to do this pre-combat, which is going to force them to react. And that way I know if I need to block or not. Still could have a removal spell for their own shadow. Which looks like they might. When you have to fatal push your own death shadow, that feels kind of bad. So start by cracking this. Do that. Do this. And we're definitely attacking in. If you have a removal spell, more power to you. Okay. If land reveals expressive iteration. Do you have a removal spell? Looks like no, you're okay. So you have a fatal push or a bolt or something? You do not. All right. Faithless Looting is not legal in Pioneer. It was not printed in a Pioneer legal set. It is legal in Historic, but it is not legal in Pioneer. Faithless Faithless Salvaging is legal, but Faithless Looting is not. Alright, so taking a quick look at the list we've been working with for the last couple weeks. So, still not sure where I stand on the 19 or 20 land exchange of things. Obviously, the sideboard looked really nice in these games. You know, we had a matchup where Sanctifier and Beck was good. We had a matchup where Deflecting Palm Path was good. We had a couple matchups where Exquisite Firecraft would have single-handedly won the game. You know, so it's nice to see that we actually ran into a couple of matches where Exquisite Firecraft is relevant. Once again, whether it's worth giving up some of these other slots. Is it crazy maybe even to move like a Roiling Vortex to the main deck to free up another sideboard slot in place of like a Skullcrack or something? It is banned in Modern, correct? 500 different programs confused. Yeah, indeed. I think that is actually a problem with Magic. A few people have pointed out is just that there's so many formats overall. But as far as this list, like, Firecraft's in a good spot. The rest of the sideboard feels pretty solid. You know, whether I want a 20th land or not, over, like, say, a Skullcrack or a Lightning Helix. But overall, yeah, this is a very solid list in terms of what it's executing. Now, take a look here in the meta here in a minute. Probably do like a separate-ish video on that. But, you know, overall in a decent spot. This league overall for the list we ran tonight. Obviously last week didn't go so well, but, you know, different things, different times, different things. We drew a little bit better this time. And our opponents were a little bit unfortunate with what they were doing. You know, the Wilderness Reclamation deck and Grixis Death Shadow are both decks that I've kind of played against before. So, DRC, the problem with DRC in Burn is a deck that really doesn't value the scry as much. Now, don't get me wrong, it can be fairly strong, and if you wanted to run like a 12 card burn deck or a 12 creature burn deck that didn't involve Eidolon, I would probably run DRC over Ragavan. But the problem with DRC is DRC doesn't have haste, and a lot of what Burn's game plan revolves around each card having to count towards damage. And a lot of times DRC just dies. Because, unlike a deck like Rakdos or Grixis Death Shadow or just Grixis Piles period or Murktide, we don't have a way to protect our creatures. So our creatures are just there for raw damage. Whether it be haste, whether it be Eidolon dealing them damage, etc. DRC was much better in situations where you were playing Mishra's Bauble and Lurrus, and obviously since Lurrus has been banned, there really is no reason to run DRC and Burn, in my opinion. Unless, like I said, you really want to run like 12 or say 16 one-drop creatures, which I just don't think Modern is in a place where creatures are at a premium. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons why Burn's stock has actually kind of gone down, is just that there's so much incidental creature hate. You look at Solitudes and Furies and Unholy Heats and Fatal Pushes and March of Otherworldly Light, Leyline Binding. You look at all these like efficient, powerful removal spells, and some of them just don't even deal damage. Like Leyline Binding or Solitude just don't deal the control or the mid-range player any damage. And DRC is much better in a deck that can protect it with Inquisition or Thoughtseize or Spell Pierce or Counterspell or Drown in a Lock. So it's just, Burn is at the point where it's just not, it can't afford to mess with any value creatures because Vern's going to get outvalued in any type of long game. It's all about, at this point with Burn, it's all about raw damage. Like all your cards have to count towards damage anymore. You can't play kind of this pseudo value game that you could play when Lurrus was a thing. And the format has gotten even more hostile in terms of just playing a long game. Like, other than maybe blue-white control, name me a single deck Burn actively wants to play a long game against. You don't want to play it against Hammer Time. You don't want to play it against Creativity. You don't want to play it against... you don't want to play it against Amulet in the long game. You don't want to play against, all these different, Living End, Dredge, all these different decks you really don't want to play a long game against anymore. So we can't even play the value plan. We have to be a straight up Burn deck. But as far as the 3 Eidolons, I actually kind of like not drawing an Eidolon every turn. So I might continue to roll with 3 Eidolons and see how I feel with that. I don't know if we'll run the 20th land in the next league we run, but it's kind of where I feel the deck is at overall. But it's going to be it for the Burn portion of the stream. I'm kind of going to do a little bit of a separate video, but also on the live stream here. But it kind of wraps up the league portion of things.